Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I welcome you to the next ISTA webinar on proficiency tests. And I would like to welcome three people here with me. It's first Didier Demilly, who is the chair of the ISTA Proficiency Test Committee. He's also since a few weeks member of the ISTA Executive Committee. So welcome, Didier, and good luck in
Thank
your
you,
new
Alex.
position as well. And in new position, we also have Claudia Fach from South Africa, which you can see in the background of her picture. She is the new vice chair of the Proficiency Test Committee, and she is coming from South Africa 6, that is Kleinkaro Seed Production Laboratory. And I welcome my secretariat colleague here who is always taking care about proficiency tests and who is an ex officio member as that in the proficiency test committee, Branislava Opra. You mostly know her under Branka. Branka, welcome also to this webinar. Before we start, just a few little remarks. This webinar is recorded and will be made available for view on the ISTA YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, I kindly ask you to put them in the question and answer box, and we will try to address all of them during the webinar. If that is not possible, you will get an answer directly from the participants. So thank you very much. And I would like to start with some words. We did a similar PT webinar in 2021, which you can view on the ISTA YouTube channel. That was more about general proficiency tests. And we are now starting, or from next year on, starting the new triennium program on proficiency tests. And that is probably a good opportunity to introduce this program to you. And we talk about the standard proficiency tests here, as well as to present you the new composition of the committee and the roles. I started that with the chairs. Didier, you would probably like to add something to that.
Yes. Before going further, I have a special thanks to the outgoing members of the committee. First, the vice chair, Sharon Davidson from USA, and Susan Andersen from Denmark. Sharon was in the committee since its creation in 2001, and Susan Andersen from Denmark replaced our colleague Dot Peterson in 2019. And I add also special thanks also to the past ECOM liaison officer, my colleague Sylvie Ducournau. And so Sylvie is now replaced by ECOM liaison officer Ignacio Aranciaga and myself in the new triennium. And I also want to welcome two new members, Sarutaya Lapuk and Karen Mathewson. Perhaps first, and also Claudia as vice chair of the committee. Perhaps Claudia, can you give us a few words, please?
Thank you, Didier. Just some background on where I come from, what I bring to the committee. I originally graduated as a molecular biologist and started my career in various veterinary laboratories. And then about 9 years ago, I changed career paths and is currently managing the ISTA accredited laboratory of Kleinkaro seed production in South Africa. I've been a member of the PT Technical Committee since 2022 and was also the PT leader of the very difficult and controversial Arachis hypogea PT in 2023. So I hope I'm still going to learn a lot from Didier in the next 3 years. And then, hopefully I will play an important role in this committee.
And then, Sarutaya, can you give us a few words and open your camera, please?
I'm not sure, Didier, that she is in
She's
the.
not the with the,
Um, they are listen only. Yeah, now she is.
no, she's not here.
Yeah,
So
she is now. She is now available.
she's
We had to make
available.
her available in the background.
Okay, thank you so
Hello,
much. I
Sarutaya.
got the allowed to access and open my turn on my camera. Good evening from Thailand. I'm Surutaya. I work in the Isvesis company in Thailand. Our laboratory was get accreditation since 2009 as the first private company in the Southeast Asia. Yeah, in the East West Seas, we are produce almost vegetables and corn. So my background and my experience is I'm in the accredited laboratory is West already 11 years to today is 11 years already. And my background in the past, I worked in the seed business, in the quality assurance, in the seed production research. All the my background in the university is about the seed science and technology. That is nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Sarutaya. And
Thank you,
then
Sarojaya. Gary
Karel,
is available as well.
can you open your camera and say a few words, please?
Okay, I just can't get my camera here. Okay, can you guys hear me? I can't get my
We can
camera
hear
to
you
work.
clearly.
Okay, great. Well, then I'll just speak, and you can imagine that imagine my face. Thank you. My name is Carrie Matheson. I am head of the ISTA laboratory in Alberta, Canada. We are a private lab. Our company name is 2020 Seed Labs, and we've been ISTA accredited since 2006. We test primarily forages, clovers, and canola in our ISTA lab, although we are a domestic testing lab as well. So we basically test any and all crop types that are available to us in this region and also internationally. I have been a seed analyst for 25 years. I've been with 2020 Seed Labs for 20 of those years, and my background is in purity and germination testing. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Carrie. And you see, Calgary, in my background, not very far from where you are. Didier,
Yeah.
shall we start? Maybe with an easy question. We talk about standard proficiency test. What is a standard proficiency test?
Alors, so standard proficiency test is interlaboratory comparative tests to compare and evaluate proficiency of laboratories. When we say standard, it includes traditional tests that are most common in the seed testing laboratories, such as purity, other seed determination, germination, moisture, tetrazolium, and more recently, vigor and 1000 seed weight that have been added. And it offers 3 rounds per year, in April, in August, and in December. Each round can include 1 or 2 species for testing. For example, it can be one species of cereal with a request for testing germination, moisture, tetrazolium, 1000 seed weight, and another species, for example, from a flower species for testing only germination. There are always 3 lots to be tested per species. And now, what is the aim and purpose of the standard proficiency tests? So the proficiency test contributes strongly to the uniformity and to the proficiency in seed testing worldwide. The 5 primary aims are: first, to estimate whether a laboratory which would like to become ISTA accredited meets the ISTA requirements in terms of technical competence. And this is a prerequisite for an ISTA accreditation audit. Second, it is to serve as a performance monitoring tool for all laboratories who are ISTA accredited. How do they perform between two ISTA audits? First, to give an opportunity to all ISTA member laboratories to compare their knowledge and skill in seed testing with the performance of seed testing laboratories worldwide. Fourth, to identify the training needs of laboratory for certain testing methods, for example, in seed identification. And finally, fifth, to give an indication on whether some ISTA methods need to be re-evaluated or improved. Now we can go more in detail on how is the standard proficiency test planned. And I will ask to put on the screen the new program plan 2026-2028. Yes. So this is the program plan. And this plan is already published on the ISTA website. But you have here a more detailed version with the name of expected PT leaders. The PT program plan is planned on a 3 annual years based by the PT committee. And the committee discusses with the ISTA Secretariat and Accreditation and Technical Department which pieces and tests should be included in the program for the 3 years period between the two ISTA congresses. And the species to be used are chosen to represent a size and germination time group, so-called crop group. There are 8 ISTA crop groups and they are published on the ISTA website. The PT plant is balanced between the whole ISTA crop group and method, and it also includes an exercise on completion of ISTA orange certificates. And you will find more information in the ISTA standard proficiency test procedure on the ISTA website. In page 4, it details how we prepare the programs. So going to the programs, you will see that we have several PTs. We have 3 PTs for 2026. So next year, it is Linum usitatissimum, prepared by prepared by Sarah Damon from USA. We will have Ordeum vulgare, prepared by Monika Olubikova from Slovakia. And then Loium perenne, prepared by Michaela George from Romania. And then in 2027, it will be Pisum sativum, with preparation from Gillian Musgrove in UK, Salvia, prepared by Elena Perry from Italy, and Trifolium incarnatum, prepared by Irena Gera from Poland. And also Elianthus annus, prepared by Line Duncan from Canada, and I will prepare Glycine Max PT myself. And then in 2028, we planned 5 PTs, Hypomea aquatica, prepared by Sarutaya Lapuk, our new colleague, Moringa, prepared by Sergio Pasquini. In the case of this species will be included before in the ISTA rule, because it's not yet an ISTA rule species, but there is expectation to include it. And then Trifolium repens, prepared by Claudia Falch, Festuca rundicea, prepared by Carré, our new colleagues, and to finish, sorghum picolor that will be prepared by Adrian Abos from Hungary. And now Branca will explain us how a standard PT program plan is handled.
Thank you, Didier. So I think we can stay with the next slide, next table. So the PT program plan 2026-2028, which is published at the ISTA website. Exactly. So this PT program plan form, how you see it, it is exactly the same what Didier now explained. The difference is a little bit the layout, right? So same proficiency test rounds are presented, the tests which are planned are presented, and the crop groups to which the particular species belong to are presented. You will see that in the table, certain species are belonging to 2 crop groups, and this is clearly indicated. For the accredited laboratories, that will mean that laboratories either accredited for one or for the second crop group are considered as obligatory participants. In the case of Moringa, as Didier said, this PT program plan might stay the same, but if there is any dispute about Moringa included in the ISTA rules, it will be replaced with another species in the future. Certain proficiency test round, as you see, they will have ISTA orange certificates to be completed. This is a voluntary participation for all participants, so accredited and non-accredited, simply as an exercise on how to possibly complete ISTA certificates. So the handling of the PT program plan is a straightforward process. So as you see, it's already published at the ISTA website. We received it from the, after the Congress, we receive after each Congress the new PT program plan, and we communicate it to the ISTA members. So accredited and non-accredited members, they already last week received the individual forms, which we might see at the next slide, next page, on the example of, let's say, the DL laboratory. So the DL laboratory is laboratory accredited for all species and crop groups and the combinations of them with the tests which are available at this PT program plan. So the next possible slide, if we can go to the second one, we will see that Didier or his laboratory will not need to choose anything as a voluntary participants because they are obligatory. In the case of, yes, this is the one. So France 02 laboratory, where Didier belongs to, orange certificates, the blue or light blue point fields, you will see Didier's laboratory can select with the drop-down menu to participate voluntarily in this completion as well. Exactly like that. If we have laboratory like Claudia, who is not accredited for all offered combination of species and tests, that would be the next page of this form. The Claudia can decide together with her team if they can or they would like to participate in some of the tests offered, let's say moisture for Hodem vulgare or vigor test offered or 1000 seed weight test offered. They are anyway obligatory here. So if you are a laboratory who is already accredited, but not for all offered combination of species and tests, you can freely select what you want to participate as voluntarily. So it's easy process. And then laboratories return the completed forms to us. If you are non-accredited ISTA laboratory, this form will simply be empty. So all the fields will be blue and you can freely select where you want to participate. But please think a little bit and analyze the form. Compare it with the offered PT program plan. If you select to participate in conductivity test, for example, the precondition is to have the equipment ready for the conductivity test. Otherwise, the simple application for participation will not bring you value because you will not be able to conduct this test. If you're a laboratory who plans to become ISTA accredited in the near future, so you would like to include certain crop groups in your accreditation, think it over and make sure that you do not miss those crop groups. All right. Once when we receive the completed forms, and the deadline we have set in the email is 1st of September, so that gives quite a lot of time for laboratories to study and decide with their teams where they want to take part in. At that point of time, we will complete our database with information for the voluntary participation, and we will provide this information to the PT leaders on the number of the samples to be prepared for the particular PT round. So the correct application or completion of the form is very important for the proper preparation of the PT round in future. This is how we are handling this form. Very straightforward. Thank you.
Yes. My question goes to Claudia, probably. What are the important aspects on the PT program plan, Claudia?
Now, there's quite a few important ones that needs to be taken into account by the participants. And firstly is that the PT is not the evaluation of performance, it's the evaluation of performance for proficiency. So the purpose is not to test all the methods that's available for a specific species. So when you look at your ISTA rules, keep in mind that there might be several different options. But this is not to say that when you receive a sample for that specific species, is that you need to do all of those tests. Participants can see well in advance if they are familiar with the offered species, and in case where they are not, they can then prepare themselves by organizing internal tests to determine which method specific in the ISTA rules would be suitable for their laboratory environment. They have time to train their staff if that is needed for testing of that particular species, and if the species is not regularly tested in their laboratory. So that's why the program is set out for a 3-year period. And we show it to the participants well in advance to make sure that all of that can be put into place in their laboratories. Participants can see well in advance if any phytosanitary issues with shipping in particular species to their countries may occur, because that is a big problem when the samples are shipped by the ISTA Secretariat. If they need import permits, because that takes time, Swiss phytosanitary certificates might be required, and any other specific pathogen tests that are required and similar in their own region. And then they can make sure that that is put into place, or they can contact the ISTA Secretariat with any questions. It must be noted that the sample preparation is very time consuming and obviously also very costly. So the participants should save their completed PT program somewhere that they can commit and make sure that they look at it and they participate in the test they applied for. Participation is voluntary in some of the cases and it can be cancelled, but before the PT samples are distributed, from the ISTA Secretariat, it can be cancelled, not afterwards. Cancellation of participation in the very last moment is not appreciated, as the effort is already put into the sample preparation and the distribution. Additional participation or subsequent application for a particular PT round is also possible, but the notice should be given to the ISTA Secretariat a year ahead of the PT samples planned for shipping. And you all know that the shipping starts in the beginning of April, August, and December. So it is important so that you enable the participation of the subsequent sufficient number of samples for the PT round and enable timely preparation of the shipping documents, the import permits, as we already said, or any of the other documentation, because it sometimes does take a long time for the countries to get that from their authorities.
Thank you, Claudia. You talked about shipment of samples. That opens the question, Branka. I know that it is all over the Secretariat mostly. Um, Tell us about how shipments are conducted and done.
Yes, it is all over the Secretariat, depending on the side of the seed we, we receive from the PT leaders. So as the audience already know, so the samples are not prepared in the Secretariat, they're prepared in the PT leaders' laboratories, which are distributed all over the world, and they're sent to us as a finished prepared small samples, which we have to simply pack into the bigger boxes with protective material, and we try to receive the samples as soon as possible, as early as possible, even before 1st of April or 1st of August and 1st of December. I have a really nice and good help from colleague Stella and also from colleague Neelam in this process of shipping and packing and shipping the samples further to the participants. So what we do with the packages we prepare, we have to register them to the Swiss postal system. And this registration, that means that samples will be sent by a priority post, right? So it's a registered priority post. Participants do receive an email from us saying the samples are shipped out. This is your registration number. In this email, we usually also add the instruction for testing. We add the specific forms for reporting the results, but also all other necessary documentation which will accompany the samples on their way to the laboratories. Some laboratories, due to different customer obstacles, they like the fast delivery of the samples. This is possible if we receive in the Secretariat the DHL account numbers. That has to be international DHL account number. We are happy to use that information, of course, in a very confidential manner, to deliver the samples to the participants who wish it in a faster way. Some participants require FedEx or different couriers. We do not necessarily work with them, but it is also possible to use them provided that participant directly organize the pickup of the sample from the laboratory. So those will be the, so to say, administrative steps for shipping. Andreas?
Switch on my mic, it takes a little longer. Are there any challenges, Branka, when you do the
Oh, yes.
shipment, except disturbing all your colleagues?
I didn't realize that's a challenge. I excuse to the colleagues who might be disturbed, but I think it's a global action in the Secretariat anyway. Yes, so we have increasing challenges. I mean, next to the standard ones with the phytosanitary requirements of the customs, which are getting more and more and more strict. This is why Claudia said, please give us information if we need to test on certain pathogens way before the samples are shipped. If the samples are shipped and your laboratory tells us, well, we need that information that the seed is free from this and that pathogen, and we don't have this test, this statement simply cannot be produced, cannot be delivered to the participants. Next to the standard phytosanitary certificate, which is not issued again by the ISTA Secretariat, it is issued by the Swiss officials. And to be able to issue it, they require import permit from those laboratories who need Swiss phytosanitary certificates with a statement why it is really needed. But next to that Swiss phytosanitary certificate, some laboratories starting asking for the phytosanitary certificate from the country of origin. Now here we have sometimes possibility to obtain such documents, sometimes we don't have possibility to obtain some document. One of the standard letter which goes with the samples would be that samples are of non-GM origin. Standardly, we see that samples are free from dangerous pathogens as far as we know. The samples will not be sown in the field, so they are not going to be distributed differently. They're going to be tested in the laboratory with destructive methods, meaning destroyed. So that should all convince customs not to open the samples, not to destroy them, not to send them back to us. But we are realizing that there is no guarantee. And the latest, I would say, requirement we have since a few years now is that even some EU countries, when they receive the samples at the customs want them to pay extra money, extra fee for, I don't know, some customs costs. Basically, from the ISTA side, this is not a requirement. This is also not a requirement from the Swiss Post. Everything on our side is settled already before the shipping. And in this case, I would just advise laboratories to talk to their customs and to explain the purpose of this proficiency test, to see internally what is really an issue there, because it's really not coming from ISTA or from the Swiss Post. Andreas?
Thank you very much, Branka. Before we actually go into the question and answer part, uh, let me have a little remark as well, because we always get the question, can non-members participate in the standard proficiency test program? Generally, that is the case, like with all other proficiency test programs of ISTA. But ISTA is not a proficiency test provider per se. ISTA takes these proficiency tests as part of their accreditation system because, and we have a few questions on that as well, because it is important to show technical competence even if you are accredited and had your ISTA audits every 3 years. Non-members can participate, and it is a wish that these members participate because they want to become an ISTA member and ISTA accredited at a later point. They should notify a year before as well that they would like to participate, and the annual fee for the standard proficiency program would be 3,000 Swiss francs per year. For members, as we all know, this is all included in your membership fee. Thank you very much. And I would like to open now the questions and answers. I have one for Didier probably. And this question is pretty interesting. If the moringa is not in the rules for 2028, is there a different tree species?
It's not clearly defined yet, but we will find another species.
That is good. Thank you very much. And maybe one question for Branka. Is it planned that a training session regarding the final PT report?
The training session regarding the final PT, I understand this question is how to interpret, how to study, how to understand the final proficiency test results. If this is the correct question or how I understand it correctly, the training is explained, actually. The explanation is given in the proficiency program procedure, which is published at the ISTA website, the one that Didier mentioned. At the quality assurance workshops, when we had a couple of times, interpretations of the results and their understanding was mentioned, so it was tackled as a separate session. And I think that also in the previous webinar, we could have had some explanation about it, but Didier can correct me, it was 2021, it was quite some time ago. So if such webinar would be needed, then I would say not only for the final results, but also for the preliminary results that we normally start with, because this is the first step. And I think we could think about it, but let us discuss in a separate way, and maybe we receive more precise question about it, Andreas, by email.
Yeah. Maybe another one for you, Branka, quickly. Could you please explain how many obligatory rounds are needed to calculate an overall rating for the laboratory, plus which number of points are needed to obtain A, B, C, and BMP?
Yes, again, this is written in very many details in the PT process procedure, which is published at the ISTA website. But in short, each proficiency test round for the obligatory participation receives the rating for each test. And this is the rating which we call in-round rating. After the 6th obligatory proficiency test round, the laboratory will receive a sum of the last 6 obligatory rounds in-round ratings, meaning overall rating. So after 6 times participation as obligatory participant in a particular test, laboratory who is already obligatory and is the accredited participant will receive overall rating.
Okay, maybe I've got a question also for Claudia that we bring her into the round here as well. Does a BMP result in my species, which my lab is not accredited, affect the overall score?
No, it
Does
does
it
not.
affect
It doesn't.
accredited?
No, if you're not accredited and you volunteer to participate in a specific species or a specific round, does not influence your overall score, because that is for you to test in your laboratory and get more experience, so you won't be negatively influenced by that specific result.
Very good. We have a similar question coming, which we answered before, on how many proficiency tests are mandatory to participate for getting accredited for a crop group. I think that's what you answered, Branka, even
No,
before.
I have to correct. So this is not what I answered. So the question was different. The question was for the overall rating after the 6 PT rounds. And this new question is a very good question. We often receive it. The laboratories ask how many times do I need to participate in the proficiency test round to have a right to apply for ISTA accreditation for that crop group and that tests. In theory, it is only one-time participation, but it has to cover that crop group you want to become accredited for. So if you want to become accredited for 3 crop groups, then your proficiency test participation should cover all 3 crop groups. And if you have a good ratings in germination, purity, other seed determination, this is very good. That candidates you for getting accreditation or applying for accreditation, the first step for that particular crop group. But if you also like to have the moisture test included in the scope of accreditation, then you also have to participate in the moisture test. And as you see, as you know, the moisture has a different type of moisture test, fine grinding, no grinding, coarse grinding, and so on. So it should also be part of your real interest. So short answer, yes, it is possible, but it is not so simple as some laboratories might think of.
Okay, good. I will answer the next question because it has nothing to do with standard proficiency test. The question is, are there any proficiency tests planned for CTELs? The clear answer is yes. And the CTELs committee is working on that. They need to find the right seed, infected seeds. And you can imagine that it is even more complicated to send these than a standard seed, which is not infected by any pathogen. So we are working on that. The proficiency tests for CTELs, GMO, and variety are coordinated by Nadine Ettel in the Secretariat. And if you have any questions, you can send your message to Nadine, and she will answer when these tests may be scheduled. I know that there's just one GMO, one ongoing or to be sent out. That is the answer for that question. So we go into a few other questions which we have here. Our company, that is probably for Branka again. Our company have recently disabled all documents which contain JavaScript because of this potential harmful. We have to report on PDF forms and sent by ISTA, which contains a JavaScript in the background. Is it possible to change the reporting forms not to contain Java? Now,
Thank
Branka.
you for the question. Yes, me as IT expert, I'm not an IT expert, but I received this question this morning actually, and I answered to it. So for this proficiency test round, because it is very short notice, I would suggest that the laboratory completes the forms manually, and we will manually enter them into the database, the results. Normally, these special PDF forms, which we send to the participants, are there specially created to enable us to import the data in the database, instead of manually typing all the results of all the tests for 200 laboratories and more. So you can imagine not only the workload, but potential for the errors, right? So this is one big improvement step that we had some years ago. So now if something has changed with JavaScript, whatever, I mean, I don't even know what JavaScript means, but we have a good expert, Conrad, who is, he created these forms for us. So I already forwarded to him this particular question to help me with the IT issue. As soon as I know the answer, I will be able to tell you. I do not believe that we will be able to, in that terms of whatever script, change it, but maybe there is some other option to overcome the problem on the laboratory side. We will see.
Okay, let's go for another one. which I will take again. Is there any PET test for insect pest detection in seed samples? The clear answer is no in the moment. And the other clear answer is why it is not. It is not because we need to get the Seed Health Committee to work on insect pest detection a little bit more and see what could be done. But I assume that it is even more complicated than to send these samples than other samples, because I know from other PT providers, not in the seed area, but also especially in the insect area, it is extremely difficult to impossible to send insects all around the world for the detection. So it may be something which the Seed Health Committee is looking into, but they first have to look into the detection and how to report these findings later on. Maybe
And
Didier?
may I
Didier?
add,
Yeah.
just
Yes.
to add that for the standard PTs, we avoid to have insect in the sample because for some country it's not acceptable to send them seeds sampled with insects, for example, in New Zealand, Japan, and so on. And so we prepare the sample, checking that there is no insect in the sample, because if not, we will have a problem with some customs.
Correct. Yeah. Let me go back to another question. How many PTs are required to get accreditation, Didier?
I don't know. I think Branka already answered this question, and she said that one PT is needed for accreditation. With sometimes with some for some cases with difficulties, because there are also some cases where we have no PTs. For example, when it's a purity method with blowers, as there are only few laboratories accredited for purity on method using blowers, we are not able to propose PTs for the two species, Dactylis and Poa, where blowers are required, for example.
And what are the most important features to evaluate in PT tests to give good score? I would say have the right results, right, Didier?
To get you good scores,
Yes.
you must have results that are close to the mean of the laboratories.
May I
Maybe.
add to the answer, Andreas,
Yes.
if you agree to add to the answer. So the mean of the laboratories that Didier mentioned, this is the mean of all laboratories accredited for that
Yes.
particular crop group and that particular test. All right.
Yes.
So the mean is not a given mean or expected mean. Right. There is nothing written like you have as a laboratory to reach this mean, and we don't know it in advance. So we know approximately the quality of the seed, the homogeneity of seed lots. But when the test is given out to participants, the participants are determining this mean later on. So we have calculations saying us, these are the accredited laboratories and this is their mean. And deviation from that mean of each laboratory gives the certain Z score as a value, which defines then whether the rating is A, B, or C.
And I just want to add that when there are several methods for germination, for example, it is a mean including the different methods of germination.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reference laboratory in our evaluation system.
Good. Maybe Branka or Claudia, does ISTA organize PT according to ISO 17043? I think I answered that question before.
Yes, you did, but actually that's Didier, right? Didier, there is a very first sentence in our written procedure, which is published at the ISTA website, saying that the standard proficiency test is prepared based on this standard. It's very close to it, but we are not accredited according to that standard. Didier?
Yeah, yes, it's we studied this point a few years ago, and it would be very difficult to ask for such accreditation. One good reason is that ISO 7 ISO accreditation is based on countries accreditation, and in our case, the shipping of the sample, the preparation, the organization of the PTs are done in Switzerland, but the sample are prepared in many countries because of the PT leaders' origins. So I'm not sure it would be easy to ask for such accreditation ISO 43.
What is the difference between ISTA PT and interlaboratory comparison testing between accredited and voluntary laboratories? And additionally, if a particular crop group is or test is not included in PTs for ISTA accreditation that laboratory wishes to include in its scope of accreditation, can the laboratory use ILC as an alternative to meet the requirements?
Shall I start with the first part of the question? It was a long question. The difference would be, I would say, the size, the scale of the organization. This the proficiency test is worldwide. As we mentioned, we have 200, well, usually 200 laboratories to send the samples to. And if you have out of 200, even half which are accredited, it's even more. And the other half which is not accredited, they will still benchmark their technical competence with the accredited laboratories. So simply the pool of data is very large. And on the level of certain few laboratories which would like to compare their results internally, whether they're located in the same or different country doesn't matter, but in case of comparative tests, it is possible to organize it in case we don't have any proficiency test which was already organized or is soon coming on the plate. In that case, the pool of data will be smaller. So in that case, normally laboratory will use simply the tolerance tables of ISTA instead of the big statistical calculation, which is not wrong, but it doesn't simply give the same, so to say, precision or same variation between the possible results as worldwide organized. Maybe Didier can explain it in a better, more statistical way than I.
No, it's nice.
Okay, so that's correct. And Claudia, I don't know what do you, from your user point of view, what do you see as adding to this, like comparative testing in comparison with PT of ISTA?
Yeah, it's just in cases where there is nothing on, as you said, on the program. From experience, we had coated seeds as well as seed mixtures, and that's something that's not necessarily part of the program. And in that case, you need to arrange something by yourself. So you need to arrange an inter-laboratory testing program with someone that's close to you or someone that's already accredited in that area. So then you end up with maybe 2 or 3 participants in your small inter-laboratory testing, and that is then used for your accreditation because there's no other option. But if there's an option with ISTA accreditation through the PT program and what you get from that with the 200 plus labs that participate, then obviously that is the best route to go.
Good. I would like to thank you, but I've got a very nice question from a good colleague of ours who I would like to pass to all of you. It is there any option to have PTs without real samples? For instance, the use of images for some tests if it is difficult to send a real sample. Who would like to start with that one?
I volunteer, Didier.
So the difficulty is that when in a PT we evaluate also the germination method in the temperature, the development of the seedlings, the substrate, and so on. So if we move to online with virtual seeds, and for the observation of seedling, the observation of seed for purity of other seed determination is done looking in the 3 dimension. And so if we provide pictures asking for identification on picture, it's not the reality. In a lab, you can turn the seed and see everything. You can choose the magnification and so on. And in a germination lab, some lab will use sound, other will use paper. If you provide data obtained with sound, a lab using paper can say, oh, I am not familiar with such seedling development. I cannot perform the test. So what we will say for accreditation in such case. So my opinion is that it is very difficult to work without real seed and seedling.
Yes, I would support fully Didier. I mean, we in the committee many years ago, there was a similar discussion on the similar topic, and the conclusion about this three-dimensional factor was exactly the same. But I would say that with the proficiency test real one, we also evaluate the system part. If the laboratory is accredited, it also very much the system part included there, as Didier said about the substrate, was it checked, is it suitable, and so on, equipment, not only if the staff is trained. And related to the technical aspect of, let's say, other seed determination, it is not only about correct identification of the seed, but it is also about correct retrieval of the seed, which is exactly part of the purity test. So of course it has its advantages. It has also disadvantages as being more and more complicated for the world distribution as a live seed. Maybe in the future some images could be as additional option, like an idea, but I don't know if we will fully be able to go over there. If there is absolutely no possibility to send any samples, probably that will be an option.
And I don't know how we can evaluate purity without weighing the seeds, because currently in the rules we have to weigh seeds and produce the percentages after rounding, and the evaluation is done on the purity results and not identification of seeds.
Yeah, or 1,000 seed weight or whatever, conductivity test, radical emergence. So these are all factors which are important for the ISTA PT.
And probably also tetrazolium, which is not easy to be done virtually. Evaluation, yes, but to do the real test is...
even evaluation. I mean, my eyes and their eyes and your eyes could be totally different looking at the colors. So I think, it really depends on the obtaining of the tissue.
And other seed must be more than half the original size. So if you have a broken seed for another species, how to you evaluate it correctly only on a picture and not with a very precise determination, observation? I don't know.
Good. There is one which I would like to add here, and maybe also to all of you, and Claudia can start. When the problem arises, like it was in the case with Arachis, what is the criterion for withdrawing the PT round?
Well, there were so many different...
Because I have to sign it afterwards.
There were so many different results that were obtained from the different laboratories, because a sample like Arachis is very difficult in terms of, do you need to use some extra pesticide with it, or to assist with the germination. So it was very difficult to prepare the samples in our laboratory. And it took some some time to go through all the different tests and to get the right results in terms of repeatability, reproducibility, and homogeneous lots. So by the time it was sent out to the Secretariat, there was a lot of time that already passed with those lots. And anyone who knows Arachis very well knows that that's not a seed that you can store very long. So by the time it was sent out to the laboratories, there were some of those countries that couldn't even import the sample. And it wasn't there was nothing on the seed, as it was just the seed itself, and even then some of the countries didn't want to import the seed, and so already a lot of those laboratories that wanted to participate and who had needed to participate couldn't. And then by the time that the results were sent in, Branka can give some information there. There were so many different results that there was absolutely no way that you can give a proper mean that you can use all the different laboratories tests to be compared with. Branka, you had a lot to do with that, and you can give us some more information on that one.
Yes, exactly. I would say that this is not the unique case when we had to cancel the proficiency test, right? Arachis was very unusual because it was very exotic species for most of the laboratories. Maybe most of the laboratories were not so experienced like laboratories in South Africa with testing those seeds. One of the organizational issues we had is that seed, of course, had to be tested according to the ISTA rules in the PT Leader laboratory, and that is using the, what was it, fungicide, something you used there, Claudia. And then to import such seed to Switzerland, we had to import it, that was a law, to import it without any treatment. And then sending it to the laboratories who needed to apply again ISTA rules, it turned out that very many of them, they could not even buy the fungicide because it is simply forbidden within most of the EU countries, how understood. Then coming back to the results were really so heterogeneous that the standard deviation was extremely large, something which doesn't give you the plausible results at all. So it's not absolutely not good starting point for any statistical calculation. But on the statistical calculation, I think Didier can explain the further steps we took.
I just want to add that that we are not alone to withdraw some PTs. The several PTs of germination or Virgour test was withdrawn, including Arachis, and always we ask advice from the technical committee, the germination of the Vigor committee, and we ask advice to the statistic committee to check statistically if we have to keep or not a PT when we see that we have problem with the results. So there is always a validation, and before asking you, Andreas, from the statistic committee and from the technical committee opinion before withdrawing a PT.
That's absolutely true. That is also giving all the information necessary to make the judgment. Of course, it is not a judgment out of the stomach, it's a judgment out of arguments, and that was the case here as well. I would like to add for this Arachis point before I close the session here, because we are at the end of the hour, that now the Germination Committee is working on Arachis, and they're looking into that, how it could get into the ISTA rules that it can deliver reproducibly good results in ISTA tests. So it was probably a very old species in the rules, and we need to look into that again, and the Germination Committee is working on that. As a final remark, thank you all, your three, Branka, Claudia, and Didier, to be here and presenting us the next year's round and answering a lot of questions. There may be one or two other questions coming in, and we will send them around that you can answer them. Thank you very much. And to all of you who are attending, have a good day, continuation, or a good night, and see you at one of our next webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Goodbye.
very much, Douglas. Goodbye.